What are you gonna do now, Tapis? You gonna take that for a walk?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. I think I can get started now. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Today the topic that I'm talking about is nutrition and Ramadan. I am very honored to have been invited to talk on this topic because I am very passionate about health and well-being. And so it's my pleasure to be speaking today. I just want to check, first of all, that you can hear me. Can someone just share in the chat? Okay, Jazakallah khair. So this is a brief outline of what I plan to cover today, inshallah. It's going to be a packed session today. And so we are going to spend about, I think, close to 45 minutes going over these topics today, inshallah. And then we will leave some time for questions and answers at the end. So if you have any questions, please feel welcome to type them directly into the chat. And I think the moderator is watching those questions as well. And I would be happy to address them at the end. So some quick introduction and disclaimers about myself before I begin. I want to be fair that, you know, I am not a registered dietitian, although I have studied in that program for 1 year. So that was half of the academic portion. And then the dietetic students typically go on 1 year of a practicum as well. So I actually decided to change my professions in the middle of that program, and I am currently pursuing pharmacy. But of course, nutrition is part and parcel of any healthcare profession, and I'm very excited about finding ways to integrate it into the work that I do ahead, inshallah. So I'm currently a second-year student, and just want to give a disclaimer that the presentation that I'm sharing today, that this is not meant to be medical advice, you know. So, you know, if you hear something today that makes you think that you want to make any drastic changes to your eating habits, then I would recommend against that. I would say, please do consult with your doctor or registered dietitian first, because then they can look at your unique situation and give you individualized advice that is going to be best for you. So enjoy the presentation today for educational purposes. And if you have any medical conditions, if you are on any medications, or, you know, like I said, if you're considering any significant changes to your diet, please be sure to consult your doctor, your pharmacist, or a dietitian before you take on any advice. Also a note that in BC, I think a lot of people aren't aware of this, but you can always call 811 to speak with a registered dietitian for free. So this is a great service that we have, alhamdulillah. Sometimes they are quite busy, and so what they do is they ask you to leave your name and number, and then they can call you back, you know, within 1 to 2 business days. And you know, I've personally used the service myself, and they're happy to spend, you know, even close to an hour just talking to you and recognizing what challenges you're having and giving you really great advice that can help you. And also, if you are taking any medications currently, be sure to call your local pharmacy as well. And again, you can consult a pharmacist for free about the safe use of your medications during Ramadan, if there are any changes that you need to make or anything you need to be aware of, especially if it's a new medication that you just started. Okay, so let's begin. I think we can all agree health is quite important, and in Islam especially, it actually has a huge value as well. You know, our bodies are an amana from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so that means it's a trust. We are responsible for taking care of our bodies in the best way possible. And there are many ahadith and ayat in the Quran that show this, right? So the one that I think is quite powerful in the ahadith is this one, that a strong believer is better and is more lovable to Allah than a weak believer. And there's good in everyone. But the reason why a strong believer is better and more lovable is because they're going to have energy to do all of the acts of ibadah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to see from us, right? When we perform salat, in order to go into sujood properly, in order to go into ruku properly, you need to have properly functioning muscles and joints that don't give you too much pain, right? So keeping your body moving, including strength exercises on a regular basis is important for all of us, because as we age, all of us are going to experience issues. So it's good to keep moving as much as possible. And then same with fasting, you know, we learn to refrain from food and water as well as any useless activities, right? Like speech and using our limbs for something that may not be the most important thing in Ramadan. And also getting rid of useless thoughts that are in our hearts and minds, and trying to focus all of our attention on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So fasting, not only trains us spiritually, but it also trains our bodies as well to become comfortable with hunger and to learn to control our cravings. And internally, there's a lot of benefit that's going on too. It helps us stabilize our digestion, our metabolism, and our hormones. And all of that, helps to reduce inflammation in the body, and in the long term, inshallah, prevents things like cancer and other chronic conditions as well. And just a reminder, that Hajj is a mentally, spiritually, and physically challenging act of ibadah. So of course, taking care of our health is important so that we can perform Hajj with the most energy possible. So just a reminder that I wanted to share on some of these points here. So let's start talking about how to prepare our body for Ramadan. So we have close to 15 days of Shaban left right now. I think we're at 17 days today. So I thought I would leave you with a few good pointers to start thinking about how your body needs to be getting ready. So first of all, as we all know, it is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ that we fast Mondays and Thursdays. So, we have about 2 weeks left. Let's make the most of that. You can fast as many days as you like, of course, because this is a blessed month too. But especially Mondays and Thursdays can kind of help us get back into the rhythm of fasting. And then you can recognize maybe some habits that you need to work on, and you can plan ahead for them. And this healthy plate model is amazing. You can search the Canada Food Guide and find this healthy plate model, and they go into a lot of detail in terms of how to follow this. But if there's anything that you will keep seeing today, it's probably this model. A lot of the advice that I'm giving today is based on this. And the idea is that half of your plate here is your fruits and vegetables, and a quarter is going to be your proteins. So that's your meats, some dairy as well, egg, beans, lentils, legumes are also very rich in protein. So those are all, a quarter of your plate. And then the last quarter here is going to be your whole grain foods and starches. So if you, before the Canada Food Guide really used to go into a lot of detail on, you need 2 cups of milk a day, and you need this many grams of nuts every day, or, this is how you need to be measuring things out. And I think it was becoming a little bit counterintuitive. It made it harder for people to follow a healthy diet because it felt like a lot of calculations and measurements. And what that ended up doing is putting people into a stressful kind of situation where food, instead of being an enjoyable, natural thing that we participate in every day, few times a day, started becoming like a diet that you have to follow, right? So I think that's why, that's one of the biggest reasons why the healthy plate model has come about, is to give a more visual graphic so that you're thinking about this on a bigger scale in terms of general things that you need to be aiming for. And, sometimes I know it can be really hard to imagine half of your plate be vegetables, because I think a lot of our cultures that are predominantly Muslim have mostly rice in the plate, right? Or roti and salan and things like that. So it's hard to imagine a plate like this, but it is a good goal to work towards. And what I always say as well is maybe half a plate of vegetables might be really hard in the beginning to aim for, but you could start with a third of each, right? So a third could be your vegetables and fruits, and then a third could be your protein, and a third could be your whole grain foods. And again, a reminder that, having just chicken as your meal might not be the most healthy thing either. So if you're having, chicken kadai or something like that, be sure to include a salad on the side as well, and enjoy fruit for dessert afterwards or something like that. Try to change it up a little bit and include more fruits and vegetables into your day. So you might hear me hammering these points the most, because I think this is the most important takeaway today for how you plan out your meals for suhoor and iftar, and just every day, all of your meals. So coffee and tea is sometimes a little bit of a hiccup for people in Ramadan as well. You might notice that you experience headaches, and that's natural in Ramadan because your blood sugar levels start to drop closer to the near end of the day, and our brain relies on glucose. I'll go into that a little bit later. But as your levels start to drop, you start to feel more headaches and feel more tired. But if you're also drinking coffee and tea regularly right now, then that effect becomes even more pronounced, because you're so used to having caffeine in your brain. So a few quick notes about that. Caffeine withdrawal effects, they vary for people, but typically they do kick in about 24 to 50 hours after you've started fasting. And they can last up to about 9 days. So if you're lucky, it'll only last 2 days. But for some people, if you're drinking a lot of coffee right now, it's just, the thing that drives you and helps you get everything done right now, then it might take a few more days for you to get over. So I think something that you can definitely start doing right now is start cutting back on those cups of coffee if you're having a lot, right? So if you're having 2 cups, go down to 1, or 1.5 if it's really hard, but just start kind of slowly sliding back on it. And slow down. So the reason why I say this is because mindful eating is quite important. Learn to listen to your hunger cues and eat mindfully. When you're eating at the table, remove all the distractions and, sit and eat together as a family, talk to each other. I think Ramadan is really nice because people start to sit and eat together at iftar, and it might be the one meal that everyone is sharing in the day. And so post Ramadan as well, those will be really good reflections to take with you, inshallah, because eating together has been shown to be beneficial not only for your own health, but also for your children as well, because children have been shown to eat more when they're sitting at the same table as their parents, and they have their parents' attention, and they're watching their parents eat, and then they're eating as well. So it's really beneficial all around. Sorry, I hear someone in the background. Could you please mute yourself? All right, and one last point as well. I think a lot of people sometimes in Ramadan think that, I'm fasting, I don't have energy, so I shouldn't be exercising. But, this is not an excuse that you can take to stop moving at all. So I would really recommend to get into the habit, if you're not already right now, to move your body for 20 to 30 minutes a day. 5 days a week. And I'll leave you with some tips as well for Ramadan as well, in terms of how to move during Ramadan. Sorry, I thought my connection was unstable. So make sure that you are moving 5 days a week. And, it can be anything that you enjoy. It doesn't have to be running if you hate running. It doesn't have to be weightlifting if you hate weightlifting, but something that allows your heart rate to go up, and then also including some kind of strength training as well. So that can be as simple as just your body weight, right? Like push-ups and crunches and things like that can be really nice. So let's talk a little bit about what happens to our body when we're fasting. So this year, inshallah, we're probably looking at about 15 hours of fasting in the beginning of Ramadan, and it will go up to about 18 hours near the end of the month. So, when you have suhoor, I think that's why it's so important to make sure you don't skip suhoor, because look at what happens to your body during the course of the day. About 90 minutes after your meal, that's when you're going to get the peak in your blood glucose levels. And likewise, your pancreas actually releases insulin to take care of this glucose and put it into your cells and help your cells get energy. And then because insulin has been released, your blood glucose levels start to drop. And so as they drop, that's around 4 hours post-meal, they will have dropped to close to the bottom of how much is expected. And so now your liver will start releasing stored glucose. It's called glycogen, and now it's converting it and helping it go into the blood because that's needed for your brain to function. So for the next few hours, up until 10 to 12 hours, your body's going to be running on the glucose that is released from your liver. And also around this time, your food will be completely digested. So that's when your digestive system actually goes to sleep in a sense, and it starts doing some repair activities, and your liver glucose stores also start dropping. So this is quite a pivotal moment during your fast. And then 18 hours post-meal, this is when your fat stores start being used for energy and your blood ketone levels peak. So this is actually why some people do the keto diet, is because they believe that having low carb intake will allow your blood ketones to peak, and then your body will be using fat for energy instead of blood sugar. And so the idea is that it will help you lose weight in the long run. But there is some controversy with that. And just a note that if you are considering to go on a keto diet at any point, please do make sure that you talk to your doctor or a dietitian about it, because it's supposed to be closely supervised. And there are a lot of things that you need to be careful about, and you need to be very strict in terms of how you're eating. So it's important that you do it under the guidance of a medical professional. And a really good figure that I also found, it's might be a little bit hard to read here, but it shows some of these levels changing, like I described here. Your blood glucose level starts to drop, and then your liver releases this glycogen that turns into glucose. And then as that starts to drop around the 16, 18 hour mark, that's when you see this gluconeogenesis. So that's your ketones that are being released in the blood, and your fat stores are being used. So on the point of fat stores being used, I think a lot of people think that fasting in Ramadan is great because it will help me lose weight. And I think some people might be chuckling because that might have been kind of at the back of their minds this Ramadan as well. Like, oh, gained so much weight over the pandemic, maybe Ramadan will help me get that back into control. So I decided to find a study that would help demonstrate how pursuing weight loss in Ramadan really works out. So this was a really great study that came out just 2019 actually. And they are basically looking at all of the different studies that have been done. So that's a systematic review. And then they did a meta-analysis. That means they looked at every single study, took out all the numbers, and then they put them all together to look at the collective kind of results. Like, how do all of these studies compare to each other, and are they all agreeing to one another? Like, it's not just isolated places that saw certain results. They all agree that there's benefit or harm in fasting in Ramadan. So they looked at healthy non-athlete adults, so people like you and me, we're not all athletes, and they compared fasting in Ramadan to measurements that were taken before Ramadan. And what they found was that after Ramadan was over, there was significantly lower fat mass in people, and also some muscle mass loss as well. But the fat loss was a lot more. But then, get this, 2 to 5 weeks after Ramadan, everyone returned to their pre-Ramadan measurements. So all the studies that have been done are showing that, even if you do lose weight over Ramadan, it's not something that is sustainable for our bodies to be fasting 30 days a month. And of course, Islamically, that's also not something that we are necessarily told to do. It's good to balance, and that's why the Sunnah fasting Mondays and Thursdays is there, right? So don't use Ramadan as a weight loss strategy. And remember that our first and foremost intention in Ramadan is to be fasting for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to lose weight. So I just wanted to put that point out there as well. So again, some general healthy eating tips in Ramadan. Like I said, the healthy eating plate model will come up again. So just reminding everyone about that. But also some points that, don't overeat in Ramadan, but also don't eat too little. Like I said before, in an earlier slide, your body starts to use these fat stores over here. But if you haven't really been eating very much in suhoor, you might even get to a point around this time where your body needs to start breaking down muscle and release proteins and use that for energy. And that's not something that you want because we start to lose muscle mass as we age anyway. And if you're doing that to yourself on purpose, that's really not ideal. And remember to hydrate well. I think we're all very good about this in Ramadan, but sometimes you can experience things like constipation and lightheadedness and headaches. And a lot of those things have to do with just making sure that you get enough water in a day. So I have a really neat formula here that can be used. You basically take your weight in pounds, you multiply by 2/3, so 66%, and that gives you your water in ounces. So if 8 ounces is 1 cup of water, that will tell you how many cups of water you should be drinking in one day for your weight. So this is a really great way of getting the water that you need that's individualized to you. So notice how for a 180 pounds person, you will need about 120 ounces a day, which is close to 15 cups. So this is why some of those common myths out there about just drink 8 glasses a day is not necessarily true for every single person. It's good to do this calculation for yourself and see how much you need. And then make sure that you're drinking lots of water at Iftar and then between Iftar and Suhoor and at Suhoor. And sometimes it helps to just drink 2 cups every hour, just to remember. So here are some things to remember when you are designing your suhoor. Make sure that you have complex carbohydrates in your meals. So these are things that are fiber rich, and because of that, they give you sustainable energy. And the reason why that's so important is because when you have fiber and carbs become sugar in our blood, the fiber actually slows down the release of that sugar in your blood. So that's why it's such good sustainable energy. And it will help you not get sluggish and feel that energy crash too soon after the meal. So some examples of this would be multigrain breads, all bran cereal, lentils, oats, barley, bulgur, beans, rice, pasta. All of our carbs are great. For pasta, there are actually some really great brands out there that have added fiber to the pasta. So that could be something to look into if you really like eating pasta. For protein, there is some evidence that eating slow digesting protein at suhoor could be helpful because it takes longer to get absorbed in your body. And so that's why it will get released into your blood more slowly and will give you relatively more long-lasting energy. And protein also actually helps slow down the release of sugar from your carbs. So that's why, pairing a protein and a carb in your meals is so good. For instance, you may have noticed this as well if you have just cereal in the morning versus eggs, then you end up having more sustainable energy when you have eggs, right? So it's just really interesting because proteins slow down the release of that energy. But what I've realized is that you don't necessarily need to be looking out for slow digesting proteins. I think all proteins are helpful, and they will all work the same way in your body. So cheese, Greek yogurt, milk are really great because dairy sources are so wonderful at silver time, but also eggs, chicken, you can even have seafood, you can have beef, whatever you like, including some kind of protein will be good. And remember to include hydration as well. So your fruits and vegetables and drinking lots of water. So I have included a few examples of suhoor as well. So for in the morning, you could put together some oats or barley as well. Barley has been shown to be, like in the hadith, you see the Prophet Muhammad al-Salaam eating barley quite a lot. So it could be a nice way of incorporating sunnah into your day. And then you can combine that with some Greek yogurt, so that gives you some protein. And chopped dates will give you some sunnah there. Chopped nuts will give you healthy fats and protein, fruits for hydration, and then a little bit of honey for the sunnah as well. And another idea could be maybe having whole grain chapati or some brown rice and pairing that with some scrambled eggs, some steamed vegetables for that hydration, and then enjoying some fruit as well, just for that hydration again. You can also make really yummy smoothies as well for suhoor. I think this can be a really good solution if you have to go to work in the morning. I think most of us are working from home still, but even if that's the case, we do need to wake up by a certain time in order to start the day. And if you've been up late for Tarawih, sometimes people try to skip suhoor or eat something really light. So a smoothie can be a good solution there. So these are some tips for how to build a good smoothie. I think a banana base is really good because it makes it creamy and adds a little bit of sweetness to your smoothie as well. And stock up your freezer with some frozen fruits. It can be anything that you like. Some really good ones that go in smoothies are mangoes, berries, pineapple. Avocado, you'd be surprised, but it's actually a great addition to your smoothie because it gives you so many healthy unsaturated fats as well. And that gives you some long-lasting energy as well. You can add vegetables like spinach or kale. And if you don't really like those strings that come into your smoothie, you can remove the stalks, no problem. You can add some chopped dates, honey, maple syrup. That adds a little bit of sweetness to your smoothie. And then these are great ideas like oats, hemp hearts, chia seeds, flax seeds. This is a great way of adding some fiber to your smoothie. Not that the fruit doesn't count, but this is just even more fiber and helps you feel a little bit more, full and satisfied after your smoothie. And then of course, hemp hearts are also rich in omega-3. So that's a really healthy fat for you to have for your brain. And I think sometimes people like to blend their smoothie in water because they are trying to avoid the extra calories. But I think in Ramadan, that could be a time to really embrace the milk and include those calories because milk is also giving you the added protein as well. And then you can add some really fun ingredients too, like chocolate chips, coconut, peanut butter, almond butter. There's so many types of nut butters as well. You can explore that aisle. There's like cashew butter too, hazelnut butter, which is way better than Nutella, personal opinion. But yeah, lots of good things that you can try and mix into your smoothies. So the ingredients of a satisfying iftar. Again, I think I have an image. Oh, okay, never mind. The healthy plate model is again very important here. So you're going to have half your plate be vegetables, a quarter will be your proteins, and then a quarter will be your grains. I'm probably boring you by saying those things again, but that is really something that you need to be aiming for. So be creative with that and see how you can design really neat meals that incorporate things that you love eating and that are culturally important to you. Some things that are traditional, so dates and water, in the hadith, that is the sunnah way of opening your fast, and having some food afterwards also helps with hydration. And then in Arab cultures, I've noticed that they really enjoy, you really enjoy having some soup with meat broth, lentils, pasta, and grains as well. And that's really good because it hydrates you and gives you a little bit of nutrition so that you are satisfied, and then you can go pray Maghrib, and then you can come back, and now you've had that pause as well, which helps your body start to digest, and you're not going to be sort of devouring the iftar that's in front of you. Your hunger is a little bit more under control now, so it's a great idea to have some soup as well. Yeah, and then just, practice mindfulness, eat slowly, eat small portions. There's always going to be more. There's no race, right? And a neat point that I thought I would share with you all is that your stomach actually takes 20 minutes to recognize that it's full, right? It's very slow. So you could be scarfing down that meal and not recognize until half an hour later that you're actually really, really full and you ate too much. So that's why eating slowly is so important, because then your stomach and your brain can be in tune, and your brain can listen in on whether you're actually still hungry or not. This is a question that I think all of us have in our minds as well, is, I want to eat healthy in Ramadan, but does that mean that I have to give up my samosas and my pakoras? And the answer is no, you don't have to give them up. It's completely okay. Your cultural satisfaction is just as important as getting all those nutrients and being well fueled. So what I like to advise people is that you start with those nourishing, non-fried foods. So, if you have a typical iftar setting like this, then have some soup, have some fruit, some yogurt. And Pakistani culture, we like to make chaat with chickpeas. So that could be really great as well, because there's protein and healthy fats in the chickpeas, and fiber, lots of fiber there too, which is really good. So start with some of these foods, and once you're satisfied, you've eaten enough, then you can enjoy, a samosa or a pakora, or like a couple. But just eat slowly and enjoy it, and be guilt-free about it, and listen to your body. Just listen to your body cues on when you're full and satisfied. I think sometimes we do more harm to ourselves when we create food rules and try to restrict everything, because then you crave them even more and you end up binging on them. So we don't want the binging. We want nice, consistent, balanced kind of eating. I also thought to share some snack ideas between iftar and suhoor, because you haven't been eating the whole day, and later on in Ramadan this becomes less of a need, I've noticed personally, and people have told me this as well, is that they don't really feel that much hunger anymore. But in the beginning of Ramadan, this can be sometimes a need because you've been fasting the whole day and you've been craving certain foods. And then iftar happens, and then you're overly full and you're like, I'm not going to eat anything else. And then Tarawih happens, and then you're really hungry and you're trying not to eat, but then you start binging on something. So in order to avoid that kind of cycle, I think it's good to just plan a couple snacks in advance that will be really healthy and good go-tos for you. So I've listed out a couple here. So you could have a whole grain single slice sandwich. So you could take a whole grain slice of bread and spread on some peanut butter, or you could put on some cheese, some tuna, egg salad, something like that. So that's combining a protein and a carb. So that's an excellent snack, because the carb is giving you the blood sugar that you need, and then the protein is giving you some nourishment and also slowing down how the sugar is released in your blood, right? So that's really good. Hummus dip and veggie sticks is really yummy and gives you long-lasting energy as well. The hummus is giving you protein, healthy fats, because it's made out of chickpeas. And then the veggie sticks are giving you more hydration as well, which is so needed in Ramadan. some fruit, apple slices, and peanut butter is a great snack, gives you something sweet. And then the peanut butter is giving you some healthy fats and protein as well. So it's really satisfying, and it'll help you curb a lot of other cravings. Whole grain crackers and cheese, nuts, all great ideas. And then here I decided to share a recipe for some energy bites that you can make in advance. So, we're all prepping for Ramadan, we're preparing those samosas and spring rolls and all those things and freezing them in advance. So while you're doing that, maybe you can spend a little bit of time and make these as well, because these could be great go-tos in Ramadan between Iftar and Suhoor, and also they could be a great go-to for Suhoor itself. You could have a couple of these and maybe a glass of milk. I don't know. That could be a great way of starting out your day as well. So just to go over the ingredients here, you've got some rolled oats and chia seeds, flax seeds, or hemp hearts. Those are great fillers. You could use a nut butter, so almond butter or peanut butter. Some kind of a sticky liquid sweetener, so honey or maple syrup, a little bit of vanilla extract, salt, and then mix in some things that you really like to eat. So maybe some chocolate chips, dried cranberries, chopped almonds, raisins, anything. These can be really satisfying. So some potential pitfalls in Ramadan. If you're having a lot of headaches, make sure that you're not missing suhoor. Make sure you're drinking enough water. If you feel really full after Iftar, like you had too much or you ate too many samosas, then toss out the guilt that's there and just you renew your intentions. Drink some hot tea. Mint has been found to be quite helpful. And then that can help you reset your body. If you're experiencing constipation in Ramadan, this can be quite common because the fast this year is still fairly long, between 15 18 hours. So it is possible. So make sure you increase your water intake. Prunes are a great evidence-based way of beating constipation. So you can either have dried prunes and add them into your suhoor in the morning, or you can enjoy half a glass of prune juice if that's something that you like. And they really help fight constipation very effectively. And the other thing to remember is that not all fiber is equal. I know sometimes you're told that if you have constipation, just eat more fiber-rich foods. But if you have soluble fiber foods, so things like peas, oats, these things can sometimes contribute to the constipation, especially if you're not drinking enough water. So if you're really having a problem with this, make sure to include some of these insoluble types of foods too. So your whole grains, nuts, fruits, and root vegetable skins. So maybe you make sweet potato or potato wedges for Iftar. Keep the skin on. It's giving you some extra fiber. And what this does is it actually speeds up how the food moves through your digestive tract and helps to clear all the bulk out. So it's very good. And I thought I would add a funny kind of tip as well. But sometimes constipation can be the result of not going to the washroom enough times. And, sometimes you're like, I want to keep my wudu for as long as possible. But, remember the blessings and making wudu constantly. And so it's okay. Go to the washroom when you need to go and just make wudu again. It will give you even more ajr, inshallah. Okay, and then if you experience some heartburn after Iftar, cold milk is something that I personally, from my pregnancy days, found to be very helpful. But the reason why it works is because it has the cold calcium that comes in, and it helps to, it kind of works like an antacid, a natural antacid in your stomach. And avoid lying flat for about 2 hours after Iftar. And that will help, inshallah. And of course, I want to include some exercise tips in Ramadan. So don't let yourself go in Ramadan. Just because you're fasting doesn't mean that you shouldn't move anymore and that you should just sit in one place the whole day because you're not eating. Make sure to include some fun movement, and you can explore ways to do this as a family. You can go out to the park maybe an hour or 2 hours before Iftar and run around with a ball, or even just walk around, whatever it is, just move, because that will help you feel more energized. And it's a great activity for you to do to beat some of that boredom that comes in the last hours of the day. And light Pilates can be a great exercise as well before Iftar. So Pilates are exercises that involve your body weight, and it's a great way of including strength conditioning without going too overboard with heavy weights or anything like that. But at the same time, I do also recommend strength training exercises. So if you do have some lightweight dumbbells lying around, it's good to use them because they help you preserve muscle mass. But your body weight is fine too. It's not necessary. Just something where you're using your muscles. And I thought I'd share a parenting tip for the busy, tired moms and dads out there. Ramadan can be quite taxing energy-wise. I realized this last year when I was fasting for the first time with my little toddler, and it can really drain your energy. So, you know, you might think it's impossible for you to include exercise too. But, you know, putting the baby into a stroller and going for a walk before Iftar, that could be an easy way for you to have the baby kind of locked in one place, and you don't have to run after them anymore. And now you can just have some peace. You can listen to some lectures on your headphones and just enjoy a nice stroll outside. Or you could play some physical games with children before their bedtimes, right after Iftar. Maybe just run around with them a lot, get them really tired out so they can sleep faster. And then it's also going to give you some more peace time later on for your night ibadah, inshallah. So that's a win-win. And then because I'm a pharmacy student, I thought I would also include some tips for anyone who has type 2 diabetes and is fasting. I think tomorrow, inshallah, there is a doctor coming on to talk about this as well. So I won't go into too much detail with this. But just a reminder that if you have type 2 diabetes and you're thinking to fast, make sure that you discuss that with your doctor. It is a personal decision. But this is a good reminder from the Quran that, you know, do not let your own hands throw you into destruction. Meaning that you shouldn't be harming yourself either, right? Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has exempted people from fasting if they have health conditions. And so that rahmah is there for your own benefit, and it's not necessary for you to kill yourself in order to fast when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you that exemption. But, you know, at the end of the day, it is a personal decision. Just make sure to weigh the benefits and risks for yourself. But I will say, if you currently have complications of diabetes, so things like having poor vision, if you have heart disease, if you have kidney disease, then you should seriously consider not fasting, because fasting could make these things worse. Additionally, if you are on any of these medications, so insulin, glyburide, glycoside, glimepiride, and repaglinide, these can actually increase your risk of hypoglycemia. So your levels dropping below, your blood sugar levels dropping below 4 millimoles per liter. So because in even normal days, they can increase your risk of hypoglycemia, fasting can actually increase that risk even more so. So either explore with your pharmacist if it's possible for you to change some of these medications so you're taking something that doesn't have that risk, or consider just avoiding these meds. Sorry, don't avoid these meds, but avoid fasting if you're on these meds. You do need these meds. Don't start skipping those doses. And then just a reminder about signs of hypoglycemia. So if you are feeling shaky, dizzy, sweating, you have a really fast heartbeat, feeling confusion, then you should be breaking your fast, and you need to take 15 grams of glucose right away. So that could be 1 glucose tablet, that could be 3/4 cup of juice, or even pop. It doesn't matter, just you need to get some sugar in you right away. or it could be 3 packets of sugar mixed into water, a tablespoon of honey, or 6 lifesavers. So those are these candies over here. And then you wait 15 minutes, see how you're feeling, and measure your blood glucose again. And if you find that it's still below 4, then you need to give yourself another dose of 15 grams. And if it's not coming up above 4, then that's your sign to call 911. And I'm sure you all know this. If you're living with diabetes, you already know this. You don't need me reminding you, but thought I would just put that reminder out there in case it's beneficial, inshallah. For those who are fasting while pregnant or breastfeeding, again, it's important to weigh the risks and benefits. If you have been diagnosed with gestational diabetes, so you develop diabetes right now while you're pregnant, it's probably best that you don't fast, because fasting will, like I described here, will put you at risk of hypoglycemia. So feeling all these things, the shakiness, the dizziness. And the reason why that's so bad is because your body needs glucose to function. And if your blood sugar levels are so low, it can be fatal. I don't want to understate the seriousness. You really do need to be careful with that. And at the same time, fasting does not make your baby more likely to be born premature. It also, in studies, has not been shown to affect birth weight. You may have less energy overall. And actually fasting in the second trimester has been shown to be beneficial because it may reduce the risk of developing gestational diabetes. So there are some benefits as well. So that's something that you need to think about. But ultimately, if you are worried at all for your own health or for your baby's health, then remember again that you are exempt from fasting due to Allah's rahmah, right? If you decide to fast, then it's even more important for you to follow that healthy plate model so that you're getting all of that energizing food into your body, the whole grain carbs, the protein, the healthy fats, and all those vegetables and fruits. Like you really, really, really need those if you are fasting while pregnant or breastfeeding, because you're eating for 2 people. Even when you're breastfeeding, you're still eating for 2 people. So it's even more important for you to eat properly during Ramadan. Never ever skip suhoor. Make sure you drink lots of water and you're keeping those energizing snacks between iftar and suhoor. And I would also recommend keeping a food diary. So you're keeping track of everything that you're eating daily, and notice how you're feeling after eating that. If at any point you feel really, really, really weak or dizzy, anything like that, then I think it would be wise to consider if you need to break your fast. And remember Allah's mercy. May Allah forgive us. Okay, so I think that's about it for my presentation. Jazakumullah khair, everyone, for paying attention. I will take questions now. And I thought I would just leave my Instagram handle if you ever want to get in touch with more questions in the future, inshallah. If you want to email me, my email is there as well. And yeah, Jazakumullah khair for listening in. And I hope that you all have a very energetic Ramadan that helps you pursue all the acts of ibadah that you have planned. Yeah, so great question in the chat. Aside from oatmeal, what other suhoor options are there for someone who can't have gluten, dairy, or eggs? So there are cow's milk based dairy, so like soy milk is still an option for you. Other plant-based milks, almond milk, oat milk, those could be an option for you to include, because they still have soy milk particularly is the one that's actually equivalent to cow's milk, so it will still give you all the protein, calcium, and vitamin D that you need. and enjoying some other grains would be good. So oats are actually gluten-free, just in case you didn't know. So oats are still an option. But of course, there are other sources of protein too, right? Like I said, chicken, beef, seafood, including those could be great in suhoor too. You can treat suhoor just like an everyday meal and make sure to include lots of fruits and vegetables. Does that help? Walaikum assalam. So I have a question in the chat. My wife has iron deficiency and low MCH. Is there something that she should try during Ramadan that might help her? She also has magnesium deficiency. So I'm going to be careful not to give any individualized advice right now, because in order for me to give you the best possible advice, I need to have a detailed understanding of your wife and any medical conditions that she has. How is she usually eating? Things like that. So I think if you want individualized advice, I would really recommend that you call 811 and maybe talk to the registered dietitian there. I think they could give you a lot of really good points, and they will have heard exactly how your wife is eating first. But generally speaking, I think, of course, if your wife has iron deficiency, make sure that she continues taking her iron supplements daily. And if she has magnesium deficiency, don't skip out on those magnesium supplements, right? But other than that, I would recommend calling 811 for the individualized advice, okay? Oh, great, Naveen, that's great. I'm glad that was helpful. Any other questions? Albina, a grain. I don't actually know. That's not a grain that I'm familiar with. What culture is that from? I see a follow-up regarding the iron pills for someone's wife, and that these aren't really helping a lot. Remember that iron stores actually take some time to fill. I don't know when her iron deficiency was diagnosed, but it can take up to 3 months actually for the iron stores to fully recover. And I'm not sure how low her iron levels were, but it can take some time. Also, when you are taking iron, remember that there are ways to increase the absorption of iron too. So if you have vitamin C at the same time, then the iron absorption is increased. So for example, drinking some orange juice at the same time. Tomatoes are iron rich as well. So if you're having beef, make sure that you're eating it with some tomatoes, which is easy to do, I think. Yeah, generally that's something that can help. And also make sure to space out the calcium-rich foods that you're having. So try not to have dairy products or caffeine as well, I think can interfere with iron absorption. So space those out by about 2 to 3 hours. I think generally it helps to take your iron supplement before you sleep at night, because then you're done eating for the day. Sometimes it helps people with the constipation as well, because your body has the night to absorb it properly. So does that help? Organ meats, yeah, organ meats are always great. Organ meats are rich in a lot of different nutrients, not just iron. Great, Wayakum. Oh, okay, so talmidna is ground barley. I didn't know that. I learned something today. Thank you. Yes, that is definitely a whole grain. If it's barley, I highly recommend it. types of exercise during Ramadan. Yeah, so I think some things that I can add, like I said, Ramadan is not the time for you to be trying to lose weight. And it's also not the time for you to pursue bodybuilding. So keep a balanced approach and make sure that you're including some kind of movement. It really doesn't have to be a lot. It could just be a brisk walk before Iftar. It could be some Pilates. Other kinds of stretching exercises can be helpful as well. If you have light weights at home, then following some kind of a workout video could be great, especially once you've had your Iftar and you're waiting for Tarawih time. That could be a nice window for you to fit in a more vigorous workout. But again, don't make it too intense because you don't want to increase the energy demands on your body. Fasting alone is something that demands a lot out of us energetically. So this is not the time for you to be bodybuilding. Just keep it light. Your goal is to keep your body moving and keep it conditioned. So a little bit of strength training, but not too much. I hope that helps. These are great questions, mashallah. I was a little bit worried that no one would ask anything, but these are really good. Any other questions? Sorry, my internet connection seems to have been broken up there. Do we have any other questions? Okay. No more questions from Facebook. Okay, well, I think that seems to be it. Jazakumullah khair, everyone. Thank you so much for attending today and for your great questions as well. I hope that you all have a very blessed Ramadan, inshallah.